My cheating ex-wife took everything in our divorce, then demanded my lottery money, so I set a legal trap, exposed her greed in court, and destroyed her for good. Hey Reddit, before I start, let me tell you something. No matter how smart or careful you think someone is, their arrogance will always trip them up. That's exactly how my ex-wife, Jessica, ended up. Jessica and I had been married for 6 years. On paper, it was a decent life. I had a stable job in IT consulting, and she was a freelance graphic designer. We weren't rolling in money, but we didn't have to worry about bills either. To everyone else, we probably looked like a pretty solid couple. But let me tell you, I wasn't about to end up one of those guys who finds out years later that they've been played for a fool. I started noticing little things. Jessica's schedule got weird. She'd suddenly have client meetings in the evenings, or take hours to run errands. She started dressing up a lot more. Heels, makeup, the whole deal. Even if she was supposedly just meeting a client for coffee. And her phone? That thing was practically glued to her hand, but she'd never leave its screen up on the table anymore. I wasn't the kind of guy to jump to conclusions. But I'm also not an idiot. Something wasn't adding up. I decided to test the waters one night. I casually asked her how her day went, what her client wanted, and so on. She gave me the vaguest answers, then quickly changed the subject. It was like she couldn't get out of the conversation fast enough. I didn't push it, but I wasn't letting it slide either. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention. She'd leave the house to work at odd hours but wouldn't bring her laptop. Her social media started looking more like a single woman's profile, posting selfies, vague captions about freedom and happiness, that sort of thing. The turning point came one evening when she left her laptop open. I wasn't looking for anything, I was just moving it out of the way. But when I picked it up, I saw a message notification pop up. She had her iMessage linked to her laptop. It was from some guy named Kyle. Last night was amazing. Now, I could have gone nuclear right then and there, but I didn't. I'm a planner by nature, and I wasn't about to give her the chance to twist the story, per se. Instead, I opened the text. Sure enough, it was exactly what I thought it was. A whole thread of messages between her and Kyle, going back 2 months. They talked about everything. How they'd met at a yoga class, their secret meetups, and even how she was planning to leave me once the time was right. I wasn't just mad, I was focused. I forwarded the messages to myself, screenshotted everything, and made a folder full of evidence. I wasn't going to give her an inch of wiggle room, Brie. Next day, I called a lawyer. I laid out the situation, showed him what I had, and asked what my options were. He told me it was going to be a fight, especially since we didn't have a prenup. But with the evidence I had, we had a solid case for a divorce on the grounds of infidelity. When I finally confronted Jessica, I didn't yell or lose my temper. I just showed her the messages and said, "So, when were you planning on telling me?" She froze. For a split second, she tried to deny it, but the evidence was too damning. Then she switched tactics, blaming me for not being attentive enough or making her feel appreciated. I shut that down real quick. This isn't about me, it's about you, and you know it. We're done. That's when the real battle began. Jessica wasn't about to let me walk away without paying for it. She lawyered up and came after me for everything she could get, half my savings, the house, the car, even part of my retirement. Her argument? She sacrificed so much for our marriage and deserved her share. The divorce process was hell. Her lawyer tried every trick in the book to drag things out and make my life miserable. At one point, Jessica even claimed she needed more money because she was supporting me emotionally while I built my career. The audacity was unreal. My lawyer told me I had a good shot at keeping most of what I'd worked for if we took it to court. But after months of back and forth, I just wanted it over with. So, I made a choice. I let her have it. It wasn't worth the mental toll to keep fighting. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Sure, I was broke, but I was free. At the time, I had no idea just how much karma was going to come back around. So, after the divorce, my life boiled down to 2 things: work and survival. Starting over from scratch wasn't just some cliché for me, it was my reality. I was 35, living in a 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of town with furniture I'd either picked up at thrift stores or dragged in from the curb. My once comfortable life, complete with a house and a car I'd loved, was gone. But honestly, I was too determined to dwell on it. The apartment wasn't much. It had scuffed floors, a kitchen that could barely fit 2 people, and neighbors who thought 2 a.m. karaoke sessions were a good idea. My living room was a futon I found on Craigslist and a TV that only worked if you banged it on the side. The walls were bare, the fridge was mostly empty, but it was mine. No Jessica, no Kyle, no constant reminders of how badly I'd been screwed over. I threw myself into my work. My job as an IT consultant wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and I was good at it. I picked up every extra shift I could, taking on freelance gigs in my free time. My weekdays blurred into weekends, and I rarely took a day off. Sleep became optional. It wasn't the healthiest way to live, but I had a goal: rebuild my savings and prove to myself that I could thrive without Jessica or anyone else. The first few months were tough. My bank account was laughable, and I was constantly exhausted. I'd sit down after a list, a 12-hour day, stare at the pile of bills on my coffee table, and wonder how the hell I'd gotten here. But then I'd remind myself I was free. No more Jessica telling me I wasn't good enough. No more pretending everything was fine while she lived a double life. That thought alone kept me going. One thing I realized quickly was how little I actually needed. When you're stripped down to the basics, you figure out what's really important. I didn't need fancy clothes or a new car or a perfectly decorated apartment. I needed a roof over my head, food on the table, and the drive to keep moving forward. It was almost liberating to let go of all the material crap Jessica had obsessed over. Of course, social media didn't make it easy. Jessica and Kyle were living it up, or at least that's what they wanted everyone to think. Photos of them lounging by the pool at my house, smiling next to my car, and acting like their relationship was #1 goals popped up in my feed every other day. I could have blocked her, but part of me wanted to see how it all played out. I knew it wouldn't last. People like Jessica and Kyle were built to self-destruct. Sure enough, cracks started to show. Mutual friends told me Kyle wasn't exactly the responsible, loving guy Jessica had made him out to be. He quit his gym job and was spending most of his time partying and burning through Jessica's money. Apparently, she was footing the bill for everything: groceries, utilities, even his bar tabs. The house she'd fought so hard for? It was already falling apart because neither of them could be bothered to maintain it. The car? Kyle crashed it into a mailbox within 6 months. I'll admit, hearing about their downfall gave me a little satisfaction. Okay, maybe more than a little. But I didn't dwell on it for too long. I had my own life to focus on, and for the first time in years I was starting to see progress. One of the first big milestones was paying off my debts. Between the divorce and Jessica draining our joint accounts, I'd been left with a mountain of credit, card bills, and a couple of lingering loans. It took months of scrimping and saving, but one by one, I knocked them out. The day I paid off the last one, I celebrated with a cheap frozen pizza and a 6-hour binge of my favorite show. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt damn good. Next came rebuilding my savings. I set up a strict budget, cutting out anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. No eating out, no impulse buys, no splurging on things I didn't need. I became the king of meal prepping, eating the same rotation of chicken, rice, and veggies week after week. It wasn't exciting, but it worked. Slowly but surely, my bank account started to grow. Around this time, I also started taking better care of myself. The divorce had taken a toll on my mental and physical health, and I was tired of feeling like crap all the time. I joined a local gym, not Kyle's, obviously, and started working out a few times a week. It wasn't about getting revenge or looking better than Kyle. Okay, maybe a little. It was about feeling stronger and more confident in myself. Work was another area where I saw huge growth. All those extra shifts and freelance gigs paid off, not just financially but professionally. I built up a solid reputation in my field, and after about a year I landed a promotion. The pay bump wasn't life-changing, but it was a step in the right direction. More importantly, it was validation that I was capable of standing on my own 2 feet. As I started to feel more stable, I allowed myself a few small luxuries. I upgraded my futon to an actual couch, bought a decent coffee maker, and even treated myself to a weekend trip out of town. Nothing crazy, but enough to remind myself that life wasn't just about work and survival. I was allowed to enjoy it too. By the end of that first year, I was in a completely different place, financially, emotionally, and mentally. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Jessica and Kyle, not so much. From what I heard, Kyle had drained Jessica's savings, maxed out her credit cards, and left her high and dry. She lost the house, the car, and pretty much everything she'd taken from me. Karma works fast sometimes. But honestly, I didn't care about them anymore. My focus was on myself and the life I was rebuilding. I wasn't rich or living some dream life, but I was happy, and that was more than enough for me. I'd learned that I didn't need Jessica, a fancy house, or a flashy car to feel successful. All I needed was my own drive and determination. The best part? I did it all without Jessica's drama or toxicity dragging me down. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my own life, and that feeling was worth every struggle I'd been through to get there. One Friday after work, I was running errands and stopped at a gas station to fill up my car. I was standing in line to pay for a soda when I noticed a bright display of lottery tickets next to the register. Normally, I wouldn't give those a second glance. I wasn't the kind of guy to waste money on long shots, but for whatever reason I thought, why not? And grabbed a ticket. I stuffed it in my jacket pocket and didn't think about it again. The weekend came and went, and the ticket was all but forgotten. A few days later, I was scrolling through my phone while eating dinner and saw a headline about an unclaimed lottery jackpot. The winning ticket was sold at a gas station in my city. My heart skipped a beat. I jumped up, rummaged through my jacket, and pulled out the crumpled ticket. I wasn't expecting anything. It was just a silly impulse buy after all. But when I pulled up the numbers and compared them, I nearly dropped my phone. Every single number matched. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, staring at the ticket and refreshing the website to make sure I wasn't seeing things. This kind of thing didn't happen to people like me. I mean, who actually wins the lottery? The next morning, I took the ticket to the lottery office to confirm it. They ran the numbers, and sure enough, it was real. After taxes, I was looking at about $10 million. My brain couldn't even process it at first. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to be that guy who blows it all on stupid stuff and ends up broke in a year. I did some research and hired a financial advisor and an attorney before claiming the prize. They helped me set up a trust, which allowed me to claim the money anonymously. It was the best decision I could have made. Once the money hit my account, I sat down and made a plan. I didn't want to be one of those stories you hear about, the lottery winner who loses everything because they went wild. My advisor helped me put the bulk of it into investments and high-yield accounts. I wasn't going to touch that money unless I absolutely needed to. I did allow myself a few upgrades, though. First, I moved out of my tiny apartment and bought a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing extravagant, just a 3-bedroom place with a nice yard and plenty of space. It felt good to have a home that was mine and mine alone. Next, I replaced my beat-up old sedan with a new, reliable car. Again, nothing flashy, just something comfortable and dependable that wouldn't break down on me. I also bought a few nice things for the house. After years of sleeping on secondhand furniture, it felt like a luxury. But that was it. No extravagant vacations, no designer clothes, no fancy watches. I didn't need any of that. What I needed was peace of mind, and for the first time in years, I had it. The weirdest part about winning the lottery wasn't the money itself. It was the freedom that came with it. I didn't have to stress about bills or work overtime just to get by. I could breathe. That kind of security is something I hadn't felt in a long time, and it completely changed my perspective. I also decided to give back in small ways. I donated to a few local charities and helped out some friends who were struggling. Nothing that would put a dent in my savings, but enough to make a difference in their lives. It felt good to share my good fortune without making a big show of it. For the most part, I kept my win under wraps. I told my best friend Mark because I trusted him completely, but I didn't even tell my extended family. People act weird when they find out you have money, and I wasn't about to invite that kind of chaos into my life. Life after the win was quiet and simple, just the way I liked it. I still worked part-time as a consultant, mostly because I enjoyed it and wanted to keep busy. I spent my free time fixing up my house, going to the gym, and enjoying my newfound stability. Winning the lottery didn't make me a different person. It didn't solve all my problems or magically make my life perfect, but it gave me the chance to start over on my own terms. And for that, I was grateful. Little did I know, my past wasn't quite as far behind me as I thought. But for now, I was just happy to be in a place where I could live my life without any drama, or so I thought. Let me tell you, nothing ruins a perfectly good afternoon like seeing your cheating ex-wife standing in your driveway, leaning against a rental car like she belongs there. I almost didn't recognize her at first. It had been over a year since I'd last seen Jessica, and life hadn't been kind to her. Her once carefully put-together appearance was gone. She looked like she was trying to fake the confidence she used to wear so effortlessly. This wasn't the first time I'd heard from her recently. A couple of weeks before, she'd sent me a random Facebook message. Just a simple, "Hey, Ethan, how have you been?" I didn't even bother to respond. After everything she put me through, the last thing I wanted was to open that door again. Then came the calls. Unknown, numbers ringing at odd hours. I ignored them all, figuring it was probably her. The thing about Jessica is she doesn't give up easily, especially when she thinks there's something to gain. Turns out, I was right. So, there she was, uninvited and unwelcome, flashing me a smile like we were old friends. I didn't even bother with pleasantries. I opened the door just far enough to step outside and block her view of the house. "Jessica, what do you want?" She tilted her head, trying to act casual, but I could see right through it. Can't I just stop by to catch up? It's been so long, Ethan. I crossed my arms. We don't have anything to catch up on. Say what you came to say and leave. She sighed, dropping the act almost immediately. Fine. I heard you've been doing well for yourself. Rumor has it you hit the lottery. There it was. I don't know how she found out, probably through mutual acquaintances or social media whispers, but the moment she said it, I knew exactly why she was here. Jessica didn't just show up for nostalgia, she smelled money and she wanted a piece of it. Even if that's true, I said, keeping my tone as even as possible, it has nothing to do with you. We're divorced, remember? She shrugged, like it was no big deal. I'm just saying, Ethan, we were married for years. Don't you think I'm entitled to something? After all, I supported you through so much. I almost laughed. Supported me? Jessica had taken half of everything I had, including the house and car, then ran off to play house with Kyle. But I wasn't about to waste my energy arguing with her. You're not entitled to a thing, I said. Whatever I have now, I earned after the divorce. You got what you wanted back then. Don't push your luck. Her smile faltered, and for a moment, I thought she might back down. But this was Jessica we're talking about. She doesn't quit until she's either gotten her way or made a total fool of herself. Well, I think we should talk about it, she said, stepping closer. Maybe over dinner or coffee. We could figure something out that works for both of us. I shook my head. There's nothing to figure out. You should leave. Her expression hardened, and she dropped the fake friendly act. I'm not leaving, Ethan. Not until we've sorted this out. That's when I realized she wasn't just fishing, she was planning something. Jessica wasn't the type to show her cards unless she thought she had a winning hand. I didn't know what her angle was yet, but I wasn't about to let her worm her way back into my life. Leave now, or I'm calling the cops, I said firmly. She scoffed. Fine, but this isn't over. She got into her rental car and drove off, but I knew she'd be back. Jessica didn't know when to quit, especially when she thought there was something in it for her. Sure enough, over the next few days, she bombarded me with texts and emails. She tried every tactic in the book: guilt, nostalgia, flattery. One text even said, I was there for you when you were nothing. Don't you think you owe me something? I ignored every single message. Blocking her number didn't help either. She just switched to emailing me instead. I started saving everything she sent, just in case. Then came the second unannounced visit. This time, she didn't even bother pretending to be nice. She showed up on my porch and demanded to talk. I'm serious, Ethan, she said. We need to settle this. If you don't want to do it the easy way, I'll have to take legal action. I raised an eyebrow. Legal action? On what grounds? We've been divorced for over a year now, Jessica. You've got nothing, she smirked. Oh, I think I do. There are laws about assets acquired during marriage, you know. If you bought that lottery ticket while we were still married, I'm entitled to half. Her logic was as flawed as her sense of entitlement, but I wasn't about to let her see me sweat. Good luck with that, I said, shutting the door in her face. I spent the rest of the day fuming. Jessica didn't care about the truth or the law. She cared about what she could get. And if she thought she had a shot at grabbing even a sliver of my winnings, she wasn't going to stop. That's when I decided to call my attorney, Amanda. I explained the situation, and she assured me Jessica didn't have a leg to stand on. The timeline is clear, Amanda said. You bought and claimed the ticket well after the divorce was finalized. She can try to make a case, but it won't hold up. Still, I knew Jessica. She wasn't rational, and she didn't back down easily. I told Amanda to start preparing, just in case. A few days later, I got served with court papers. It was ridiculous, but it was exactly the kind of stunt I'd expected from her. As frustrating as it was, I wasn't worried. I had Amanda on my side, and we had the facts to prove Jessica's claim was baseless. But that didn't mean it wasn't going to be a fight. Jessica was determined to make my life as difficult as possible, and I wasn't about to let her win. The battle was just getting started. But if Jessica thought she could bully me into giving her a dime, she was in for a rude awakening. Walking into a courthouse to face your ex in a legal battle is a surreal experience. It's like being back in the worst parts of your life, but with everyone watching. The day of the hearing, I showed up early with my lawyer, Amanda. She was calm and collected, as usual, and reassured me we had nothing to worry about. Jessica, on the other hand, strolled in like she was auditioning for some kind of reality show. She was all dolled up, wearing heels that echoed through the hallway, and had this smug look on her face like she'd already won. Her lawyer was right behind her, flipping through a folder full of what I assumed was a pile of nonsense they'd cooked up. The courtroom itself was smaller than I expected. It wasn't like the dramatic scenes you see on TV, just a judge, a court reporter, and a handful of people. Jessica sat on one side of the room with her lawyer, and I sat on the other with Amanda. The judge opened by reviewing the basics of the case. Jessica's claim was that my lottery winnings were marital assets I had hidden during the divorce. Her lawyer argued that I had intentionally concealed the ticket, depriving her of what she was legally entitled to. When it was Amanda's turn to respond, she started dismantling their argument piece by piece. She explained that the ticket had been purchased and claimed after the divorce was finalized. She handed the judge official documentation from the Lottery Commission showing the exact dates the ticket was purchased and when the winnings were claimed. Then Amanda brought out the big guns, my financial records. She showed the court how the deposit from the lottery winnings occurred well after the divorce and was completely separate from any joint accounts Jessica and I had during our marriage. The judge nodded, taking it all in, but I could tell Jessica's lawyer wasn't going to give up that easily. Next, Jessica herself took the stand. She gave this tearful speech about how hard our marriage had been for her, how much she'd sacrificed, and how she felt betrayed when she found out about the winnings. It was pure theatrics. At one point she even said, "I trusted him, and he kept this secret from me. I don't think I'll ever recover from that kind of deception." Recover from what? She wasn't recovering from me, she was recovering from Kyle draining her dry. But of course she didn't bring that up when Amanda cross-examined her. Things got interesting. Amanda started by confirming the timeline. "Jessica, your divorce from Ethan was finalized on this date, correct?" Jessica nodded. "And you've seen the documentation showing that the ticket was purchased after that date, haven't you?" Jessica tried to hedge, saying, "I don't know when he bought it. For all I know, he could have bought it while we were still married and just waited to claim it." Amanda didn't miss a beat. "Are you suggesting the Lottery Commission would falsify their records to align with Ethan's timeline?" Jessica stammered, clearly caught off guard. I'm not saying that, but what?" Amanda pressed. "The evidence is clear. You've seen it yourself. There is no overlap between your marriage and the lottery winnings, isn't that correct?" Jessica had no choice but to admit it. "Yes," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Amanda didn't stop there. She pointed out how Jessica had received a significant settlement in the divorce, including the house, the car, and a portion of my savings. "You've already benefited financially from the divorce, haven't you?" Jessica tried to play the victim again, claiming she'd been forced to use that money to survive after the divorce. Amanda didn't bite. "So, you're asking this court to award you additional money, despite having no legal claim to it, simply because you spent through your settlement?" The courtroom was silent. Even Jessica's lawyer looked like he was regretting taking her case. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it short and to the point. I told the judge about the timing of the ticket purchase and how I'd gone through all the proper channels to claim the winnings. I explained how I tried to move on with my life after the divorce, and how Jessica had shown up out of nowhere, demanding money she had no right to. The judge listened carefully, then asked both sides if they had any final arguments. Jessica's lawyer gave some half-hearted speech about marital contributions and moral obligations, but it was clear he didn't have much to work with. When the judge finally delivered his decision, I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. He dismissed Jessica's case as baseless and warned her against filing frivolous lawsuits in the future. He even went as far as to reprimand her lawyer for bringing such a weak case to court. Jessica looked furious. Her face turned red, and she clenched her jaw so hard I thought she might break a tooth. I half expected her to start screaming right there in the courtroom, but she held it together. Barely. The whole ordeal had been stressful and unnecessary, but in the end, justice was served. Jessica had tried to take something that didn't belong to her, and she'd been shut down in the most public way possible. You'd think after losing in court, Jessica would have gotten the message. But no, Jessica being Jessica, she decided she wasn't going down without a fight. As soon as the ruling was announced and we stepped outside the courthouse, there she was, waiting for me in the parking lot. "You'll regret this, Ethan," she screamed, her face red with fury. "You think this is over? I'll ruin you." I didn't respond, not a word. I just looked at her, shrugged, and walked to my car. Engaging with her wouldn't have done anything but feed into her tantrum. Besides, I had bigger plans. Here's the thing about Jessica, she's predictable. She thrives on chaos and thinks she's smarter than everyone else. But the truth? She's not nearly as clever as she thinks. I knew she wasn't going to let this go, and I decided it was time to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. Over the next week, I started planting seeds through a few mutual acquaintances. I casually let slip that I was looking into a high-profile real estate investment, a luxury condo project that was supposed to be the next big thing in the city. Of course, there was no such project. It was a complete fabrication, something Amanda and I cooked up specifically to bait Jessica. Predictably, word got back to her. It didn't take long for her to reach out through one of the same mutual contacts, claiming she might be interested in partnering with me on this imaginary deal. She played it off like she was doing me a favor, saying she had connections in real estate and could help make it happen. I let her think she was pulling the strings. I told her I was intrigued and that I'd set up a meeting with the project's developers. What Jessica didn't know was that the developers were actually Amanda and one of her legal colleagues posing as real estate executives. At the meeting, Jessica came dressed to impress, acting like she was some kind of high-powered investor. She dropped all the buzzwords, ROI, equity stakes, market trends, and it was clear she was trying to convince us she knew what she was talking about. She brought fake financial documents to prove she could back the investment. This was exactly what we were waiting for. Amanda and her colleague played along, asking questions and pretending to be impressed by Jessica's credentials. Meanwhile, I sat back and let her dig herself deeper and deeper into the hole. By the end of the meeting, Jessica was practically glowing with confidence. She probably thought she'd pulled one over on us, that she was about to secure a slice of this made-up real estate pie. She had no idea what was coming. After the meeting, Amanda and I reviewed the documents Jessica provided. They were laughably bad. Poorly doctored bank statements, forged letters of credit, and a bunch of made-up nonsense about her assets. It was fraud, plain and simple. We took everything to the authorities, who were more than happy to get involved. Fraud cases like this are their bread and butter, and Jessica had handed them all the evidence they needed on a silver platter. A few weeks later, Jessica was arrested. From what I heard, she was blindsided. She had no idea the investment opportunity was a sting operation until the handcuffs were on her wrists. The fallout was spectacular. Jessica was charged with fraud, forgery, and a handful of other related crimes. Her fake financials and her attempt to manipulate her way into the deal made her case airtight. Her lawyer tried to argue that she'd been misled or tricked, but the evidence was overwhelming. The court didn't go easy on her either. She was slapped with fines, probation, and mandatory community service, and her reputation was completely destroyed. Word spread fast, and soon everyone in her social circle knew what had happened. She went from pretending to be a savvy investor to being the punchline of every joke. I can't lie, it was satisfying to watch her fall apart after years of her manipulating, lying, and scheming. She'd finally been caught and held accountable for her actions. It wasn't just about the money or the fake investment, it was about showing her that she couldn't keep walking all over people without consequences. For me, it was the perfect revenge. I didn't have to scream or fight or sink to her level. I just let her own greed and arrogance do the work for me. She thought she could outsmart me, and in the end, she only outsmarted herself. After the case wrapped up, Jessica tried to reach out to me one last time. She sent me an email, long, rambling, and full of excuses. She blamed everyone but herself, claimed she'd been pushed into a corner and didn't have a choice. She even had the nerve to ask if I could help her out financially, just until things settled down. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She'd made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. The whole ordeal taught me a lot, not just about Jessica, but about myself. I realized that walking away from someone like her was the best decision I ever made. Winning the lottery was great, sure, but the real prize was being free of her toxicity and knowing I'd come out on top, no matter how hard she tried to drag me down. Jessica thought she could ruin me, but all she did was ruin herself. And honestly, I'm good with that.